What's good, everyone? It's Zig Zag here. Welcome back to another Geoguessr video. Today I've got a whole bunch of Geoguessr tips to help elevate your gameplay. These ones are really going to help you narrow down regions particularly and get really nice scores. So the first one today is these Colombian fences with the red tops on them. For whatever reason, in Latin America, Colombia is the only country to do this, and they're not super common, but if you see them, you can instantly send Colombia, and it's going to make for some really nice guesses for you guys. Next one here, we are in Denmark, and in Denmark, often you have these short gaps in the outside lines. You can also see them sometimes in the middle of the road as well. Now, you can get this in other countries, but certainly these outside gaps are most common in Denmark. And here we also have another Danish location which has a lot of short dashes, and when you have dashes this short, which are basically like dotted outside lines, then you will also be in Denmark. All right, next one here, we have bilingual signs. So I'll flash up a map right here that shows you where in Finland you can get these bilingual signs, but basically all along the coast you can find bits of Swedish as well as Finnish. So here we have TIE, which means road in Finnish, and then Vägen, which means road in Swedish. And you can also tell in this location that it's actually going to be Finland because there are 5 dashes on the pedestrian crossing, whereas in Sweden you'd have 4. Okay, and here is another example in Finland, except this time we don't have Swedish, we also have Sami language as well. So yeah, more bilingual ones. Again, refer to that map made by Froggy. All right, next one here, we have a bilingual stop sign, which is going to be found in New Brunswick. So you can just have a normal stop sign there, but oftentimes you will have bilingual. And that will also apply to street signs where you'll have the first part and then also the French equivalent on the other side of the sign as well. Because I'm pretty sure it's a law or something like that in New Brunswick. Someone in the comments can enlighten us, but pretty sure that's the reason. All right, next one here, we have an Ontario exclusive sign. So we have the normal Canadian speed sign, which says maximum instead of speed limit like it would in the United States, and it has kilometers per hour. But then this black sign at the bottom that says kilometers per hour, the black box, is specific to Ontario, so you can send your guesses right into Ontario when you see that. All right, next one here, we have the standard road ending sign in Canada. So for example, a car's going to come over here and they're going to see this sign, which means the road is ending. Now this one, as many of you probably know, is the Canadian one with the checkered outside. It's very, very distinctive, but I'm here to tell you that in Quebec, they don't actually use that sign at all. They have 2 metal things holding it up, and it's going to be just like a standard one like this. It probably looks more like the American one, I imagine. Because Quebec is so huge, that's actually really useful, and definitely one that you can use, especially because a lot of times you won't actually have any useful signs next to it. You'll just have that, and so you can use that to determine what is a pretty generic looking round here. So definitely a nice tip for sure there. Right, next one here, we have a Quebec bollard. Oftentimes you'll see these on bridges or something like that, and it just looks like a really long Australian bollard. Moving on, we have one last Canadian tip here, and that is Ontario guardrails, which are made of wood. And of course you'll find normal guardrails in Ontario as well, but I'm pretty sure Ontario is the only place that actually uses these wooden ones as well. So yeah, I can't really think of anywhere else that would use these, and certainly in Canada you can only find them in Ontario. Specifically, I would say more so in Western Ontario, but yeah, definitely a good tip, and they're pretty common, so keep an eye out for them. All right, next one here, we are in Pohang. We have a pretty standard Korean looking landscape here, except if we turn around and look at the Google car, we have this little thing at the back of it. I'm actually not sure, it's like a little camera or something. I don't know what it actually is at the bottom of this car, but you can see that it's mounted to it, and that is very common in the Pohang region. So I'll show you where that is. If we zoom out here, we should be all in this area, this small area around Pohang, we should see that Google car, and basically nowhere else in the country. So definitely a useful little one. Bit of meta slaving there, but you know, we'll take it, we'll take it. All right, next up, we are going to talk about some more Google car meta. We have the different Tunisia metas. So pay attention now if you struggle with Tunisia guessing, because this should help you out. Okay, so this is the main Tunisia car, and basically it is kind of like a very dark green. Often it kind of appears black, and it's a Mazda, and it has a bit of red on the number plate as well. And so that is used for mainly just the middle and south of the country, Gabes and Sfax. It's specifically in those 2 cities that you can expect to see the map in the front window, but regardless, this is the car that's used for most of the south of the country. Then we also have this car, which is a more of a light green car, and it's a Toyota, and it doesn't have any red on the number plate, and that one is used for the south. So Hammamet here is pretty much the southernmost point where you'll find that green car, and then it goes all the way to Bizerta here. So anywhere between there, you can see that green car, and then south is where you'll see the dark green / black car, and that goes all the way down to Jerb. So you're more likely to see the black car, that's for sure. And there are also 2 rarer follow cars. This one is very rare indeed. It's this police car that you can find on the Jerba Island, and it's a Mercedes, pretty recognizable police car, I would say, but yeah, that's on the southern island that I just showed you, Jerba. And then also in this city, you can find the white Mitsubishi Pajero. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this meta, but it actually is definitely a thing that you can see this car following you around all throughout this city. So let's check it out here. So that is this city here, and that lies a little bit inland. It's probably the most inland coverage that you get in Tunisia. Okay, next up we are in Brazil here, and we are in the state of Pará in the north, and this is a Pará pole, which has these like kind of metal coils. There's sometimes only one, sometimes there's three, I think, pretty much, but when you see metal coils like this holding the power lines up, then that is definitely going to be somewhere in Pará, and it's just a standard Brazilian pole otherwise. And so if you weren't aware, this is the state of Pará here. It's a fairly big place. Okay, next up we are in Okinawa, which is one of the southern islands in Japan, and basically Okinawa is very easy to guess because it has quite a unique architecture. So here we have these very concrete looking buildings, and they have flat roofs on them. So there are a few exceptions here, as you can see, but most buildings in this neighborhood tend to have flat roofs and are made of some kind of concrete here. And it's not something you see too much. This kind of architecture you don't see too much in Japan normally. So you see that all over Okinawa, which is all the way down here, and then moving up towards Kyushu, you do have a few of them, but then in the north, you should see more slanted roofs because of the increased snowfall. I just remembered while I was filming that I should probably include the Hiroshima roofs as well. So a lot of red-tiled roofs are in the Hiroshima area, whereas elsewhere in the country, red-tiled roofs are actually quite uncommon. They'll mostly be black like that, rather than red like all these ones. And so in case you're not familiar, that is kind of this whole region over here. So I'd kind of say this easternmost point of Honshu is where you're most likely to see these red roofs like that, and they are quite common, so it's a really good meta. Also, in that same area in the state of Yamaguchi, or the prefecture of Yamaguchi should I say, we have these yellow guardrails, and this is a very consistent meta. If you see yellow guardrails, you can send Yamaguchi for free points, guys. A lot of people won't know it. Hopefully this video raises the awareness, but it's a very good meta, and you'll get some easy points when you see that, as opposed to the normal ones, which are just white. Okay, moving on to the next one here, I want to talk a little bit about the guardrail profiles. So this is kind of the standard A profile guardrail. This is probably what's used in your country, I'm assuming, and it looks fairly standard. Also, you can see we have orange reflectors in here, which is typical of Spain and some other countries. I'm going to link a document that has all the different guardrail metas in it, but it's definitely worth learning as many as you can. I still need to learn quite a few of them myself, but that's A profile, as opposed to Serbia, where we have B profile, which is much flatter. But today, I wanted to talk to you guys about the B2 profile, which is like much wider in the middle. And that is particularly useful because you can only see it in Czechia and Slovakia typically, and so yeah, you can see the gap is much wider here. Here's how it looks in the sun as well, and yeah, it's kind of like a mix between the two almost, and it's quite distinctive, and will help you narrow down the country very easily indeed. So it's commonly known that UAE coverage is pretty much just centered around the Sharjah Dubai area, but there is a bit of UAE coverage on Sir Banias Island, which is quite a fair way away. It all has this white Google car, which is pretty big, as you can see, and it just drives this island, which has a very unique landscape. So if you find yourself a bit confused and you have a white Google car, you might be here. And so I'll show you the location of Sir Banias Island here. You can see it's got a decent amount of coverage, and yeah, it's all the way over here from Dubai. So it's actually much closer to Qatar there. Okay, moving on to my second last tip of the video, and that is just talking about European coverage without an antenna. So as you guys know, or you probably do, that in Europe you mostly have a short antenna on the Google car, but there are a few countries where they almost never do, or they never do. So here we are in Serbia, and in Serbia you almost never have a short antenna on the car. There's no antenna, just like it's typical in, for example, United States or Canada. But in Belgrade you often do have a short antenna, so just keep an eye out for that. But yeah, Serbia should not normally have an antenna. It's the same way in North Macedonia, which also basically never has an antenna, so that's a pretty consistent one for North Macedonia. And then actually, even though Generation 3 is not as common in Italy, it's quite common for Italian Gen 3 to have no antenna as well, which can really get you out of a sticky situation, because often these Mediterranean rounds look very similar to one another, and the other countries in the Mediterranean should have an antenna of some kind in Generation 3. Also, I just came to mind that Norway also is a country that often when it has Generation 3 has no antenna, but I mean, Generation 3 in Norway is quite uncommon, so that's why I didn't have a location initially. Okay, and moving on to the final tip of the video, guys, it is a Zig Zag certified meta. I made this one up myself. I'm sure other people knew it beforehand as well, but I noticed that in Eswatini, there's almost never a T-bar at the top of their power poles. You can see all the poles here don't actually have the bar at the top that you normally have in other countries, and I'm pretty sure in Lesotho you would normally have that bar, so it just means that if you screw up the two quite a lot, then you can often use the lack of a bar in a pinch to get the right country. But honestly, this is very Eswatini looking anyway, with the red dirt and the kind of longer grass. It's much less rocky as well. Alright guys, so that concludes the video. I hope you guys found some of these tips helpful. I think you probably did, because there's quite a few that I only learned recently, so probably many of you guys didn't know them either. Guys, if you want to see more of these videos, give it a thumbs up, etc. And I should come out with more soon. So yeah guys, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in a video very soon. Take care. Goodbye.